So we started the race in about 10 to 15 knots from the south, and the team chose to put our A2 kite up, which is our biggest kite, but the correct kite for the breeze we currently had and what we were expecting for the day. As a team, we were kind of expecting the breeze to stay steady and, if anything, maybe die. So we were we were kind of hoping that was the case because we had our big spinnaker up. So we started at Shoal Shoal and we made our way north towards the Edmonds area. And as we got towards Edmonds, the breeze built from the 10 to 15 range to about the 15 to 20 range with puffs in the low 20s. So it was obvious that the trend was that it was building. And we kind of recognized that. And we're starting to think about what a change would look like on the boat in terms of what sails we had up at the time. As far as how we were doing in the fleet, we were doing really well. So we didn't want to make a lot of changes really quickly. And so we proceeded on. We headed into Edmonds on the starboard jibe and jibed over onto port, kind of aiming towards point no point area. And as we proceeded north, the breeze continued to build. We started to see puffs into the mid 20s to lower 20s. And it became obvious at that point that we really needed to make a change. And Sheridan started setting up for a letterbox takedown, which is kind of it's a conservative takedown you do when there's a lot of breeze like we were seeing, especially with a big kite up like that and not a lot of people on board to gather the kite. So she got that all set up, and we saw the breeze continued to build, and it was building really fast. It was spiking, and we started to get closer towards the possession bar on the south end of Whidbey, and the depth there goes from 600 feet to about 80 feet really quickly. And so, as you can imagine, the wave state changes really quickly. We started to see very short period steep waves, and we were going really fast and having a lot of difficulty. The boat seemed to be doing really well up to this point. We were riding really high. The boat blue has a lot of volume forward, and we're able to stay on top of the waves. But then we started to see bigger and bigger puffs, and I think we were up into the upper 30s when this incident happened. But when we finally did decide to get the kite down, Sheridan went forward all the way to the bow to get the jib set up to go up before we did the takedown, and I followed her to help with the jib, and I was at about the mast area, and the skipper decided to drive down a bit, try to make it easy for us up on the bow, try to keep us somewhat dry. Unfortunately, in this situation, we got a really big puff. I think the boat speed was around 25.8 knots, and we stuffed it into the back of of a really big wave, and the bow just kept going down. If you could imagine a dinghy that pitch pulled, it was essentially that feeling, a feeling I never thought I'd feel on a big 40-footer. But and at that time, I saw Sheridan was pretty much underwater and floating up to the surface. This was all very bang bang, but this is how my memory remembers it, at least. And the next moment I was in the water too. It was I think I probably just got thrown into the water, pitched forward with the boat. And at that time, once I was in the water, I was kind of
Uh,
looking around. Go ahead, Sheridan.
I'll add in the jib had been released, but it wasn't up yet, so it was just laying on deck with 2 points on. So when we went into the wave, it filled with water and then snapped the stanchions on the starboard side too. So there was nothing for us to hit when we went over.
Okay. And the stanchions, including that very far forward stanchion there, like seen in the picture, or
Yeah.
Yeah, the
okay,
starboard bow pulpit as well.
okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Brent.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't really, I think I went from the boat to the water so quickly. I don't even remember having a chance to grab onto anything. Sheridan, I'm sure you were scrapping up there just trying to grab onto anything you could.
Yeah, I was feeling around, assuming that I would hit a stanchion or shrouds or you, um, but there was nothing on deck.
Yeah, and the detail you brought up, Sheridan, with the jib uh, not up yet is an important detail because um, once we once the boat kind of righted itself from its after the incident, the jib was hanging overboard, and I was holding on to the jib actually as the boat was probably moving away from me at um, you know my guess is like 8 knots, but the boat was pretty much on its side, so just kind of slogging along. And I was scanning the area because I was fairly confident that multiple people had gone in the water because um, it was like a car accident, basically going from 25 knots to 0 knots. So um, luckily, most of the crew was in the cockpit and didn't get launched from the boat, but um, after scanning for a while, I did see Sheridan. You were not hanging onto the boat, right, Sheridan? At that point, you were totally separated.
Yep. I washed over the starboard side and then went under the boat and popped up. By the time I came above water and knew what was going on, I was already 20 or so feet away from the boat.
Right.
And oftentimes the people ask the question about uh, tethering in. What are your thoughts on having not been tethered in?
Yeah.
Personally,
Go ahead,
I was
Sheridan.
grateful. I was grateful not to be tethered in that particular situation. I have been tethered plenty of times and understand the value of it. But in that case, because I went under the boat and because we stopped so quickly, uh, I didn't feel like a tether would have been helpful. I just would have needed to. It would have been another thing to cut or detach from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this race being an inshore race, the jack lines were not required, so we wouldn't have really had anything good to tether into
Mm-hmm.
to begin with. Um, my perspective is I'd like to be attached to the boat in most situations, but you can I can't imagine situations where you could actually end up in a worse situation because you're tethered in. Um, but I mean, if this race was at night, obviously we'd want to be probably tethered in just so we stay attached to the boat at all costs.
Understood. Okay. And you were both wearing life jackets, right? When you went in, they were both foam life jackets, I think.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think maybe Sheridan, maybe you were the one that was pushing it early in the day, which was I'm really glad you were. I think no matter what at that point, we would have all had life jackets on, but somebody made the conscious decision early in the day, even when it wasn't that windy, that everybody should have life jackets on, which I'm super grateful for.
Yeah, and then the race committee had put up the life jacket flag, hadn't they, before the start?
They had pretty close to start, yeah,
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
was up. I will say, just in the departing of the boat, when I was underneath the boat, I was thinking about the knife that I had on me. Um, Normally, I carry my tool. It was deep in a pocket, and I realized while I was under the boat and worried I was going to get caught on something, how useless that was. Because if I could have found it and gotten it pulled out under the water, I wouldn't have known which little flippy guy was the knife. And even if I had gotten it open, more likely to have stabbed myself than actually
Mm-hmm.
cut a line. So I've reworked my life jacket knife situation.
What do you have now? Do you have a single fixed blade, or what with your
It's
experience?
It's an ugly little guy. I can send you a picture, but it looks more like a hook
Oh,
um,
yes. And
with a finger hole in it. So you can't,
mhm.
no pointy ends, but you can hook it around things and intended just for line cutting.
But Margaret, I will say one thing in terms of boat handling. I think that we're the team was doing a really good job. We were very competitive in this race. I don't think any of us really wanted to make concessions in terms of our speed, just based on where we were in the fleet and how well we were doing. Um, but I think one thing that I took away is just be super proactive with sail changes, and
Mhm.
sometimes your performance is going to suffer for some amount of time, or you might find out that you depowered too early and the breeze died anyway, and you're caught in a situation where you just lost a bunch of time because you took down your favorable sail.
Mhm.
But you just have to be super proactive and make changes early, and that's kind of, I think we were all feeling that way. Um, None of us really spoke up early enough, I think. And so that's something I really took away in terms of what I could have done better on the boat.
Mm. Okay, thank you. In the water, we haven't talked yet about the Mom 8 coming to you.
Right. So I think I saw the mom first, fairly confident of it because it popped out right next to me. At, at that at that point, I was holding onto the jib, getting dragged along. In my head, I'm thinking, "There's no way I can get back onto this boat right now." Is there?
You're right.
Uh, the boat was totally disabled. Everybody was just scrambling, trying to get the boat under control, and I knew it wasn't sustainable to hold on to this jib much longer. And right at that instant, somebody on board popped the mom unit, and it popped off the back of the boat. And I made the decision to leave the boat and swim towards the mom unit at that time.
Great. I'm glad you're able to make it there because I'm sure you're traveling at 8 knots. It wasn't going to be there very long.
Yeah, that was the split second decision that went through my head.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad it turned out to be the right one.
Yeah.
Me too.
And then you swam that to Sheridan, or how did you two get together?
Yeah, I think that was a
He's,
joint effort, right?
well, I pretended to swim. I think he was a little more effective about it. I was mostly focused on breathing.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I remember him swimming over to me, and the mom unit had a horseshoe on it, so we both kind of hooked an arm through, and I kicked him in the shins for a very long time.
I was very numb, so I didn't feel any of that, so it's okay. But I did have some bruises afterwards, so.
Sorry about that. Well, we didn't really have much communication with the boat per se. I could see people on deck yelling at us, but I couldn't hear anything. Um, we weren't totally sure that we were the only two in the water. Fairly confident, but um, we did talk about that a little bit while we were floating. Um, but the boat knew that it was just us and that we'd gotten together and had the mom unit. So at that point, they focused on getting the boat under control so that they could turn around. Um, and I focused a lot on breathing regularly. The waves coming over our heads were hard to avoid. My life jacket wasn't tight enough, so I was having a little bit of trouble staying as far above the water as I would like. That was a big focus or takeaway for me, was not just wearing your life jacket, but having it fit properly so that it's effective in that situation.
And
Very,
so
very.
for you, that was snugging up the straps.
Yeah, it's the same life jacket I've been wearing for a long time, and I have swum in it before, so I knew better. But having the bottom straps tight enough to cinch under my ribs would have been still better than nothing. But
Right, right. And what happened with the Mom 8 in terms of in that wind and with the cold water? What started to happen with the pylon?
well, with the wave action we were in, it was getting pushed down a good deal, so it was not totally laying along the water, but not fully upright. I think in calm water, the drogue and the weights underneath it would be enough to have it straight up and down. But in that situation, it was just getting blown over. And Brent pointed out after a couple minutes that we should focus on trying to keep that as upright as possible for visibility. And then we learned later that they have inflatable inflation tubes that you can use manually if you find it in that situation, because the cold water gives it a little less pressure. So could have blown it up a little more.
Yeah, I think I started saying that because we started to see boats from the fleet behind us sail by. They weren't too far away from us, and obviously everybody's focused on their own boat at that point. Like it's hard enough just to keep your own boat upright and move it along. But I started to think about, folks on deck that are only 6 feet above water, and their ability to see us is very limited. So trying to improve our visibility as much as possible was my thinking there.
People could see that pylon, and until you're right on it, it was hard to even see that there were human beings attached to that.
This picture is a perfect example. You can see the pylon, but neither of our heads.
And that's Freya, the first boat that found you. So, and then once the boats started to congregate, once the boats heard the Mayday and were searching, and then they saw a boat circling, that kind of signaled to the other boats that that's where you were. And of course, that's what the captain on the ferry also mentioned, that he had the general latitude and longitude. Of course, that was just where you went over, not necessarily where you were at the time. But when he saw, a couple race boats doing figure eights in tight circles, he realized that would be the point where you were.
We did our best to recreate the situation based on AIS later. And of course, it wasn't updating very frequently, so it's all a bit of a guessing game. But by the time Freya found us, we had drifted about a third of a mile from the original location, and Blue had drifted more like a mile. And on the AIS later, they were doing between 3 and 4 knots, even with the boat on its side and decommissioned.
Wow. Did you say you had a whistle with you?
I had one in my life jacket that I completely forgot was there. It's been in my life jacket for years. I don't pull it out very often, so it did not cross my mind.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny. I think a big thing is just, we were both trying to keep each other just calm and sane. And, I felt like we were doing a good job of that. But
yeah,
even in our, relatively calm state for the situation, there were some things that we could have done better. Like, obviously, like, how can we make more noise? Do you have a whistle? No. You have a whistle? Yeah, let's use that thing. Or Sheridan's life jacket. Like, I don't understand why I didn't think, like, maybe her life jacket's too loose. Like, it's riding way up. Why didn't I think of that? So there's things like that. Like, if you go into it, like, with a plan, like, not everybody goes overboard. So you don't really plan on it. But if you have a plan and you know those things, you can actually implement it in that situation, I guess.
Whenever I put my life jacket on now, just kind of subconsciously, I'm sitting there tugging on the straps and patting my life jacket and checking that my whistle's still there, just so that it's not so much of an active thing. It's just second nature to know where all of that is. Well, initial thoughts were we were both a little concerned that the 3 boats aiming at us very quickly didn't actually know we were there and were going to run us over. So being loud and visible would have been good, but they did. And then it was just sort of a waiting game until they were sorted in the right situation to actually grab us. Because just because there were boats nearby didn't mean we could just hop out of the water.
Right.
Yeah, and the thing I found really surprising is we saw the next fleet coming through, and they're all going downwind. Some had kites up, some had already taken their kites down. But I kind of assumed they were all coming for us. And I quickly realized when I made eye contact with somebody on the boat we were both looking at each other like deer in headlights, and they only saw us when they're about, I would say, 100 to 200 yards away.
Wow.
And that's part of the reason is I think we just weren't very visible. Like they had to get that close to be able to see us. So we were very fortunate that the fleet behind us ended up sailing through that area. Otherwise, I don't,
Yeah.
I think we'd be hoping the ferry saw us at that point, or the helicopter.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So the lesson learned is, if you're going to go overboard, fall overboard from the boat in the front of the pack, right? And on the lay line.
And on ley line.
Yeah.
Right.
So I saw in the video that I think the first boat that tried to pull a life sling to you, as I recall, the life sling was kind of leaving a rooster tail as it went through the water, and I don't think you guys even reached for that one. So what was your experience with the life sling?
They actually yelled down at us, I think on the first or the second pass, not to grab the life sling because they knew they were going too fast too. They came in on a reach, I'd say, with just the main up, and didn't realize how fast they would be going. So, 7.5, 8 knots is a little too quick in those conditions. So yeah, we let that one go by, and by the time they realized the main needed to come down, Lodos had already gotten their main down and was able to swing into.
And the first pass, I think, with Lodos, the life sling was coming into the boat still a little too fast, right?
They were, from what I heard, they were trying to maintain steerage. So they were not going very fast, but from our perspective, especially mine, it was still too quick. So we grabbed the line and waited until we got to the life sling. And at that point, I turned into a mini submarine. And I think we were both kind of getting waterboarded. Brent was managing pretty well, but I let go. And he also let go and swam back to me. I think I took the MoB unit with me when I let go.
So the lesson learned there is that the life sling, you don't want to be towing the life sling through the water very quickly at all, and especially when a person has hold of it. Because if you pull too fast, you describe submarining, the person will actually start to go underwater. So, and they did a great job of recovering in the second pass of getting their boat slowed. And then what happened?
On the second pass, I believe he said he actually put the boat in reverse, so that we were kind of coming together, and he wasn't towing us through the water as well. I remember looking at the boat and watching the transom slapping in the waves and wondering if we were going to get squished again. But I think between luck and good timing, the boat wasn't slamming when we actually made it to the transom. And I think having the ferry there to break the wind and the waves a little bit was key in that as well.
Nice that they had a low transom like that, an open transom to drag you to, or excuse me, help you aboard.
Yeah, I don't really remember much other than putting my arms in the air and then levitating on deck.
Okay. Any other thoughts about the rescue?
Yeah, I'll say that even if they were in reverse on that second pass, there was still a lot of pull in the rope. And I think if I remember right, they even started to pull us in a little bit, which, added to our waterboarding. I think I remember Sheridan was like, "I'm drowning." And I was like, "We're not letting go." I'm sorry, you're going to have to drown for a few moments. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
One thing I will say is that I was watching Lodos through this whole process, and they did a really good job. They always had somebody watching us, I could tell. But they also were very quick to get their sails down. They knew exactly what to do. And the first step is getting your own boat under control so you can approach the people in the water in a safe manner. And they went about it and, better than I can imagine anybody on the water would have done it. So it was really impressive.
Yes.
Obviously super thankful for them.
Right. Yeah. Such excellent skills among everybody involved.
Yeah.
One of my main recommendations that I took from Lotus, for anyone curious, was to do man overboard drills on less than beautiful days, because we all do our man overboard drills on lovely, calm, sunny afternoons when it's really easy to see, and keep the boat under control. And having the wind and the waves and the added complication of sails up, really is an important component.
Right.
And the Lodos team had just done some man overboard training, I believe, in the lead up to Transpac. So it was very evident, and I feel very lucky that they were the boat that showed up.
Okay, so they got you on board, and you were on board Lodos, but then Sheridan, you were hypothermic, and Brent, I don't think anybody knew for sure what condition either one of you were in. So the question was how to get you to the hospital quickly. So what happened then?
Well, we got on Lodos and they started the process of getting us out of the many layers of wet clothing. Um, I had no idea how cold I was. I was talking, from what I remember, I was communicating effectively. I knew I don't know at what point I started shivering, but I wasn't shivering when we came out of the water, which should have been the first clue for me. Um, I think it was on Lodos at some point that I started shivering pretty good. Uh, so I knew I was hypothermic, but I didn't know how bad it was. I think we spent a total of 6 minutes on board and got out of most of our wet clothes and then transferred to the sheriff's boat.
Yeah, and there was kind of a decision point that was going on too, whether to keep us on Lodos and go all the way into shore on Lodos or transition over to the police boat. I think with our conditions, it probably, yeah, neither of us were in a state to make a good decision there, and I think between the police boat and the crew on Lodos, they made a decision that it made the most sense to transfer us to the police boat to get us to shore as quick as possible, which in hindsight was the correct decision.
I think that's a good lesson learned, to realize that the people you've just pulled out of the water might not be in the best position to make key decisions like that. They might need to have decisions made for them, even if we, reflexively say, I'm okay, I'm okay. Any other thoughts, or taking a step back, big lessons learned you'd like to share with others?
I'm not sure if there's any lessons that can be gained from this, but transition to the police boat was very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And because, in that wave state, both boats are kind of cycling up and down at different rates. And it was a matter of timing to get us both transferred over to the other boat. And I remember even one of the police officers said to Sheridan, "This is why I work out," as she was about to jump over, and she proceeded to jump over and pretty much collapse him. So I thought that was pretty funny, but it was no easy task to get over there with kind of, no, I don't know, we didn't really have the ability to brace ourselves or anything. Our bodies were just kind of limp at that point. So
I'll add, I didn't jump. I was just sitting on deck on Lotus and I closed my eyes and levitated again. He did the whole thing.
So the sheriff who works out, it just basically reached over and kind of picked you up and
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found it interesting. The sheriff had called ahead and I think had said to not pick you up out of the water, which didn't make sense at the time. And, the decision was made to get you out of the water anyway. But I can see from their perspective why they may have suggested not to immediately pull you out of the water if they were close by. Their perspective might have been that it would be safer, even if it meant you were in the water a little while longer, for them to try to pull you directly onto their boat, rather than try to do the transfer. So again, who knows what's right, right or wrong, but I think it's good for people who might be in that situation just to know that an emergency services boat might make what seems like a strange request of don't pull the people out of the water yet. So.
Right.
Yeah, they had told us that later as well. Sorry, go ahead, Brent.
No, I was just gonna say if you think about the timing too, like you said, Sheridan, if we're on the sailboat for 6 minutes and then we got to go through this transition, which takes a few minutes, that's time taken away from us, getting to emergency services on shore. So I could see why there's a trade-off there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think from my perspective, probably Sheridan's as well, I wanted to get out of the water as quick as possible. So I was happy that we did.
Yes. And I love this picture here. So there's the ferry Squalicum one shore board continuing on their way over to Kingston, and the Coast Guard helicopter circling above, and I think they arrived right about the same time that everything was happening here. So the extra reassurance that there was probably a Coast Guard rescue swimmer up there in the helicopter as a plan B or C or D, because you had, I think if you're the people in the water, there's never too many plans, right? Alternative plans, backup plans. Well, thank you both very much. I really appreciate you sharing your hard-won lessons learned. You two are experts in what it is to be crew overboard. We do lots of training, and there's lots of people who like to talk about it, but the only people who are truly experts in what it's like to be a crew overboard are people who've been in extreme situations as you have, and have been kind enough to, number one, survive, and then number two, share their stories with the rest of us. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you, Margaret, for putting this together, and hopefully this helps